Let's go to Dennis, listening in Arlington, Virginia on WMAL. What you got?
Good evening, Mr. Berry. Compliments on an excellent show as usual. More importantly, your patriotic love of country, my friend. Fear not, Michael. Along with you, Mark Levin, and the majority of America, brother, this blue-collar, conservative, Tea Partier, Victoria-born Texan is the antidote to all the ills you've been talking about tonight.
Well, I love to hear it, brother.
Like the rest of our country, Mike, through our activism, our local, state, and national elections, our infectious, positive attitude, we are awake, informed, and we have our swagger back. Mike, I'm telling you, man, it is so simple, the answers to all these questions that everyone's been wondering about. I refuse. We reject the dehumanizing and the delegitimizing on a daily basis from this administration, the confusion, persuasion, deception, the coercion that we've been witnessing these last 2 years from this anomaly, flash in the pan, illegitimate president. We're taking this country back.
I like it, Dennis. Thanks for the call, brother. You know, I got to tell you, what concerns me about the future of this country and the current state of this country is not what I see from liberals. It is the fact that most Americans are unwilling to do what's necessary to take our country back. Most Americans are unwilling. They're risk-averse, they're controversy-averse, they're confrontation-averse. I got listeners that can call my show up and rattle off how patriotic and tough and, you know, love their country, conservative. And they can't even in their own home express their views because it might upset somebody. I hear people that tell me that they don't want to stand up for what they know is right because it might upset their clients. Well, then lose your client. It might offend somebody else. Who cares? What's the alternative? The left doesn't care who they offend. You know that guy that screams racism or whatever else in your office? The guy who insists that y'all recycle? The guy who insists that you go greeny-weeny? He doesn't care if you like that or not. He doesn't care if it offends you. You turn the other cheek. He doesn't. He doesn't care what you think. He doesn't care. You got to give liberals credit. One liberal in a workplace will liberalize the policies. One liberal in a group will drag the group to their level instead of the alternative. They can be outnumbered 10-1 and the whole group will remain silent. I've seen this happen in workplaces. We're not going to talk about politics here because it just upsets people. Well, that's funny because you got 9 conservatives and 1 liberal. If it upsets 10% of the people, what do we care? So you silence 9 people to accommodate 1. Bam. Very successful liberal. You know why Richard Nixon referred to the silent majority? Because we are. People email me all the time from across the country when I do Mark's show. Michael, thank you for saying what we want to say but can't. Why can't you? Who's going to be offended? That fat lady in the cubicle next door? What is she going to do to you? Beat you up? My goodness alive, she's brazen. But is she really going to harm you? Well, I don't want to be called down to HR. Okay. Well, that's a great reason to let your country go to hell. What do we fight for, people? What do we stand for? Nothing worth having, nothing worth doing didn't offend somebody. Stand up, fight back, and live with the consequences. What great man in history didn't take some scars in the process? Think about it. More Mark Levin Show coming up. Labor Secretary is now coordinating with unions. In a conference call to unions, Hilda Solis urged the union goons to, quote, let's keep fighting. Fighting? Who are you fighting? Oh, the taxpayer, that's right. Adding that, quote, let's mobilize and do what we do best, and that is to make sure that the American public understands that union rights are no different from civil rights. Yeah, that's it. The American public just needs to understand that teachers need to make $100,000 a year and they need to get their Viagra. That's a great cause. Hilda Solis, the national spokesman for labor and the Democrats in America. You keep talking. We'll put you and Jesse Jackson Jr. and maybe Van Jones out there. I think the more you talk, the better it is. So Jesse Jackson is now comparing Jr. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker to Democrat George Wallace. At a rally in Madison with the city mayor, Jackson said, "This is the week we went across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama for the right to vote. We have gone from Wallace trying to deny us the right to vote to Walker trying to deny workers the right to bargain. We have gone from Wallace to Walker." He went on to tie in Martin Luther King. Because, pretty much every issue, when you get right down to it, if Republicans oppose it, then it must be a civil right. He went on to quote, or to tie in Martin Luther King, quote, "When we march, we honor Dr. King. When we march multiculturally and multiracially, we honor Dr. King. When we march nonviolently, we honor Dr. King." Oh, that's a lot of honoring going on. I'm going to tell you that right now. I think what we need to do in this country today is when Democrats and Republicans disagree, we should just suggest that the only reason the Republicans are disagreeing is because they're racist, they hate M.L. King, they're stealing civil rights, and we used to have slavery. I think that should pretty much solve it. What you think? Barbara in Baltimore, listening on WCBM. Welcome to the Mark Levin Show with Michael Berry.
I just have to say thank you. Thank you, and thank you again for espousing the truth. And Martin Luther King was a Republican. And right now he's turning in his grave with all the men in the black race, black people, who are leaving their children without fathers, not taking on their responsibility. He did not march. And those people who were spat on and who went through all of what they went through did not go through that for the black people in this country to sit around and wait for entitlements, welfare checks, free cell phones. I'll take it a step farther than where you've gone with this, because I'm just so, I just have to thank you again for having the guts, for the confidence and being brave enough to say what needs to be said in the black community, the Hispanic community, but most especially the black community, because we've been here a long time. And the Sheila Jackson Lees and the Jesse Jacksons, the Al Sharptons are not the people that should be leading or even having a voice for moving forward in this country. And unfortunately, we have a president. I thought he was a good guy. He is a likable guy, but he's incompetent, and we might as well face it. And
Barbara, thanks for the call, dear. In the sad reality is you rattle off a list of black quote-unquote leaders, and a lot of white folks end up with the impression that that's who speaks for blacks. It's not true down to every person, but the sad reality is typically black elected officials are the stupidest blacks you can find. Rather than the best and brightest from the black community, we have elected the worst